Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are featuring a few Hanharts. In my left hand we have the Hanhart 417 ES historic model, and in my right hand we have the brand new release from Hanhart. Well, we have two of them actually, the 415 ES models. And so I want to go through the differences, a little bit of background, because they may look very similar, but trust me, there is quite a bit of difference really. But before I get too far into this review, I've got to say a big thank you to the team over at Hanhart Watches in Germany for allowing me to review these two. They post them out, absolute superstars. Unfortunately, I do believe they want me to post them back, which is a real shame, but there you go. So anyway, as I say, this 417 originally came out in the early 50s, and it ran all the way through, I believe, till the early 60s, and was a true military watch. It was only available to the Luftwaffe for their pilots, so it's a proper military credentials, this one. And what kind of gave it a bit of stardom was when Steve McQueen was filmed wearing one, and he wore, I believe he wore a 417 on a bun strap in a few movies, which kind of gave it its real coolness, especially as they weren't available for general public sale. So how we got one, we don't know exactly, but it is very, very cool nonetheless. Then along came the 415. Now, obviously, the big distinguishing feature with these is the ceramic bezel on the outer edge of these ones. And this came out, I believe it was in the 60s, thereabouts. And, you know, it's been available sort of like in a few different guises, but this is the latest version here. Let's talk sizes first. They both have a case size of 39 millimeters. The thickness on the 415 is 13.6. It is a fraction smaller on the 417 at about 13.3. Now, some people may say, oh, that's a little bit thick, but when you think a bog standard Seiko SKX is about the same thickness, and no one's ever mentioned those as being a bit too chunky. So the lug to lug, that is the longest point across the body of the watch. That comes in at 46.5, and the bracelet on both these is 20 millimeters. So when it comes to the dial, the 417 has the true classic look from Hanhart. We have the printed on numbers going around the edge there, the bicompax design. What I mean by that is we have the two subdials. Now, when you compare that to other chronographs, they tend to have three subdials. And I must admit, the bicompax design does look a lot cleaner, though technically it does sacrifice some of its elapsed timekeeping for that. But nonetheless, I think it looks very, very cool. And especially you have these nice syringe hands here, all in white. And one nice feature as well, the loom on this is very, very good. You also have a loomed second hand, which is most unusual really for many chronographs. The 415, you get this kind of, you know, the actual hour markers, as you can see, are the same font as what's found on the 417 model. And it also uses what looks like the same hands, and we've got the bicompax design. The loom on these is very, very good. But one thing the black model does have over the white model is it also has loomed subdials, which is a real nice little party piece for it. It does look very, very good. Now, it's only when you look at the two close up, you'll realize that the Hanhart logo up at the top, the way it's written, this is the 417 in my left hand here with the red pusher, has got the more historical kind of Hanhart logo with script it's used. And the 415 has the winged logo. Now, the winged logo, I think it was introduced on the 415, and it ran all the way up to the 80s. It could even be found on some of their travel alarm clocks. So yeah, I think it was just considered a more up-to-date kind of, you know, looking logo. Now, on this one, you also get the 417, you get the 23 joules. Both watches say on the bottom, anti-magnetic. Now, most normal chronographs, I think, around about 4,800 AM when it comes to resisting static electricity. But these are, I think they're 1,600. So they do have a lot more anti-magnetic properties. Now they both say shockproof, but this isn't necessarily the true case. What it means is the movement in each of these watches is suspended in like a rubber grommet, which obviously will take a certain amount of the impact. But the big difference with what's on this one is it says the term flyback. Now, if I demonstrate on this 417, if I want to activate the chronograph, press this, chronograph starts working, no problems at all. If I want to reset that chronograph, so I have to then go stop, reset, start, and that's the way it works. But on this model here, it's party piece. If I go start the chronograph, I must admit it's a lot lighter push on this one actually. But if I want to reset it and start it instantaneously, boom, I just press the red button. Now, has it got any true real world uses? Probably not, but it just looks cool and what the heck, we like that. So anyway, the rest of the dial. So this is the elapsed minutes for your chronograph. So every time that goes round past 12 o'clock, this will advance one marker on here, equaling 1 minute. It goes up to 30, so you have got a 30-minute elapsed chronograph type readout on this watch. Over here, we have the constant running seconds. This is the same on both watches for your regular timekeeping. As you can see, as this jumps over now, boom, that advances to the next minute. It doesn't creep, it does a proper jump. So it is quite nice. I think they're lovely. Okay, if you need to record longer than 12 30-minute segments, then you will need a triple design like you've seen on the watch earlier, because that can record up to 12 hours. But overall, I think both these dials look superb. They both have a real strong, Hanhart DNA. And there's no getting around it. It just looks really, really good. Now, as we come past that, we are greeted with a boxed sapphire crystal on both watches. It does look to be a little bit more on the 417, but I'm not 100% sure if that's just down to the actual bezel height on there. But nonetheless, they both feature AR coating and they do a pretty good job of eliminating most reflections. Now, the big difference, obviously, is when we come to the bezel. The bezel on the 415, we'll swap over here, it's got a very positive click. I don't know if you can hear that. And once it's in position, it is locked. So as you can see there, once it's in, there is no backplate. It is a very, very solid bezel. It only features a 60 click bezel, so what's meant by that is 1 click equals 1 minute, and it will rotate either direction, as you can see there. So it's not a true dive watch, even though these watches all feature 100 meters of water resistance to them. So, they can take going into the sea, no problem at all. All I would say is do not operate the crown or pushers if you are in the water. So that's the bezel on these. I believe it's got a ceramic insert there. These parts are actually proper divots with paint in there. So, they're not just suddenly going to rub off. The actual edge of a bezel is a coin edge bezel, and it is quite, to be fair, it's quite easy to manipulate. It's, no problem at all. Now, when you look at the 417, you may be forgiven to think it actually doesn't even have a bezel on there. This is just a red mark. But it is actually a friction bezel. So there's no clicks or anything like that. This will spin either way. And to be fair, it does require a certain amount of force to do that. It won't just suddenly move. You do actually have to give it a bit of, you really press on it to rotate it. Now, obviously, that center red piece there isn't as precise as, say, a proper dot, triangle we have on here. But nonetheless, it gets the job done. So, it's cracking. I really like this because it is so, it just disappears. You don't think it has got, rotating bezel. When it comes to the case, it's got a full sanitized finish. We do have a nice polish section going on top of the lugs there, and then radial brushwork coming round. Now, you may think these are exactly the same cases, and the case I dare say is, but look at the case back on each watch. On the 415, what I mean by this is this section here. it is a nice polished section and it just comes straight down. On the 415, it does bevel in, and I really prefer it. I think it makes the watch look a little bit slimmer because you tend to read from here upwards. This obviously will sink into the wrist a little bit better. So I do like that on the 415. I would love to know if, you know, if that case back, well, actually, is it the case back or is it actually the case? No, it is actually part of the case. So the case back just finishes there, and they've actually beveled off the bottom part of the case. It's a real shame they don't do that on the 417. I don't know why this is, if it's to keep in with the design of the watch, but I think it is. It's little details like that which really do look good. When it comes to the pushers on both of these watches, they are very pronounced. I've heard people say they're oversized. I wouldn't really call them oversized. They are very pronounced. So I do worry about knocking them sometimes, but to be fair, never had a problem. The crown on each watch carries its own logo. So you've got on here the Hanhart winged logo, and you got the more historic one on that one there. And to be fair, they're not screw down crown. They go straight into hand wind, as you can hear. Really nice. Now, being that these are manual wind watches, you'll get to a certain point. Let's see if I can get to it. Still winding. Yep, still winding. Nope. Gonna wait and see until we can get to the end. Oh, there we go. So that doesn't want to wind anymore. Now, don't force it. Just wind it gently. And now I can feel that feels secure. So it doesn't want to wind anymore. So that's all it is. You're not going to, you know, don't really try and force it. Once you can feel resistance, then you're there. Now, the big difference with the 417 Historic is this red pusher. Now, the romantic story behind this pusher is the German pilots, when they'd fly home, their loved ones would paint this pusher with their red nail varnish or so forth, as a kind of reminder, you know, they had someone at home. That sounds great, but the other explanation I've heard is they were actually done red so the pilot would know when you get to a certain waypoint. Because if you know, if you're traveling at a certain speed and you travel for a set, you know, a set time, then when you get to a, you know, after a certain amount of time, you would make a course correction. And what you would do then is go, and then it would reset. So you'd actually be able to use this to navigate. So, you know, either way, I like the first one. I think it just sounds superb. Now, the next difference is the movement. So both of these feature a solid case back. The larger size of the 417 does have a display case back, and I must admit it looks gorgeous, but I think it has less actual anti-magnetic resistancy to it because of that display case back. But underneath here, this is one thing where they do differ again. On the 417, it features the AMT 5100M movement. Now that is technically, it's made by Sellita, but it's done in their more kind of premium range of watch movements. So it's just that little bit more flash, and I completely understand why. It's a beautiful manual wind movement. It has a column wheel on there. It's just really well done, I have to say. I've looked at one under a microscope and it is absolutely beautiful. I did put this on time graph and I think it was coming at plus 3 seconds a day. And also, one thing I did do, and what's a sign of a true good chronograph, is when you activate the chronograph when it's on timekeeper, it didn't lose a massive amount of amplitude in any way, shape or form. Because obviously the mainspring is not only powering the timekeeping, but it's also powering the chronograph. I once did that on a Seiko chronograph, and it lost sort of like, I think it was like 60 degrees of amplitude, which was obscene. So a sign of a very good chronograph movement. Now in the 415, it features the Sellita SW510 movement. Now that is basically a same as what you see on the back there, 7750, but with the rotor and the auto module removed. So I put this one on time graph, but I think it was also in about plus 3 or so in the position I had. Both watches feature 23 joules and 58 hours of power, so that should be more than enough to keep you going. Overall, both movements are solid. The big difference though on this one, it is a cam operated movement. So the difference between a chronograph with a column wheel or a cam is the cam is a little bit cheaper to manufacture, and you obviously are rotating a larger mass when you want to start and stop the chronograph, where on a column wheel it is a lot lighter. You aren't rotating as much mass. So do you really notice any difference? To be fair, not really. Again, it's down to kudos. It really does look cool to have that column wheel on there. Now, the bracelet. Well, actually, start on the 417. This, I opted to have this one on the bracelet. I personally prefer the bracelet over the bun strap, as I found manually winding the watch, when it was on a bun strap, it kind of just got in the way a little bit on the side of there. But, you know, horses for courses, I understand a lot of people will like it on the actual bun to keep the original look. So the bracelet which came with this is a fully brushed affair. It is actually a screwed bracelet on there, so it's like an oyster style, and it is actually very good. You do have quick release up top there, so you can actually take that out. Can I put it back in now? That's always a test. Is that in? I think so. Yep, there you go. So, you know, it's great. You do have a nice simple clasp on the bottom of there, 2 button press, and you also get 3 levels of micro adjustment and let's say an extension piece. I'm not going to call it a dive link extension because I don't really think it is. So on the Hanhart, the 415, the newer model, you are greeted with the exact same bracelet with the same quick release on there, but the clasp is different. Now, obviously, you got the newer logo on here, but if I release it, you'll see there's no micro adjustment on there, but you do have a push button here. And you have, I believe it's 5 levels. You have almost like a centimetre, 10 mil of adjustment on this. And what I like about it is when you look from there, you cannot tell that is an extension piece. You can from the side, but I'd say if you put that in one click, and I do like that you can press this in while it's actually on the wrist, you wouldn't really know that was an extension piece. That is done so well. I really do like that. And also the beauty of this is when you put them together like this, you can see it's not exactly much thicker at all. I think it's like 1.8 millimeters thicker or something like that. It is a fraction longer, but to be fair, I quite like this new one. And I have tested, yes, it does fit the 417. So this will transfer directly over onto that watch. So yeah, I had no problem at all. It fits perfectly. But let's say you don't want the bracelet on this. You can also order it on a bun strap, or you can order it also on these leather straps here. I think the white dial suits the tan one more, and I would say that the black dial suits this one more. This is normally the one you see with the bun strap, and obviously you have a matching hardware on the bottom there. So if you're more a leather strap kind of person, they do have you covered. Let me put these on my wrist so you got an idea how I look. Quick zoom out and a wrist check. I am wearing my new, I say my new, it's been sent from Rec Watches to be reviewed. Their, what is it called? DNA edition, I think. And I think this watch is amazing. It's got a piece of a Spitfire which flew in the Battle of Britain there, which is a rather cool thing. So yeah, nice watch. And Bob's gone hardcore. Bob's got the brand new limited edition Bamford edition altimeter, I think it is. My God, that is one seriously hardcore bit of kit. What it does, I haven't got a foggiest, but I will by the time I do the review. So anyway, my wrist size is 7¼ inches. If I put this on here, obviously this is size for me because it's my own watch. I think that is just lovely. It is an absolute, yeah, really one of my favourite watches I have. So I really like that one. Now, for some reason, when I was editing this video, I noticed that my mic had stopped working, so I'm just going to voice over all this lot here. As you can see, I'm now demonstrating the 415 black dial on, and I've extended the bracelet so you can see just how long that bracelet actually is. Probably would support, I would say, an 8-inch wrist with no problem at all. And the watch, as you can see, looks really good on the wrist. As I pointed out many times in this video, I think it is a really very cool watch. And now we get the Panda. So just get an idea how it looks on the wrist. And as you can see, still, you know, it's a really good looking watch. It really is hard to sort of like say which one I prefer. All comes down to whether or not you prefer the black or white dial, or if you like that party piece of having the lume on the subdials. Anyway, I think with that one, I will leave you to it, guys. And most importantly, you'll stay safe up there. Take care. Bye.